Alright, today we're filming a Bulgarian split squat hit piece because the Bulgarian split squat really isn't an exercise that I like very much, and it seems to be really popular for a number of different reasons. And we're basically just going to go through and describe all the reasons why it's pretty mediocre, and I'm going to finish off by giving you some better alternatives that you should try. So the reason we're coming up with this right now is because I recently had a discussion with a friend about using Bulgarian split squats to improve his jumping ability. It's a really commonly recommended exercise for that purpose, and I just think it's really not the best option you could be going for. I think it's a pretty mediocre jumping exercise or athletic exercise. I also think it's a pretty mediocre bodybuilding exercise. There's really not a whole lot of things that I would actually recommend it for. It's not exactly that it's a bad exercise to do, that it's bad for you or anything. It's just that any time you could use a Bulgarian split squat, there's going to be a better alternative for you to use. I might be a little biased because, when I do it, it just feels bad. It makes my knees feel bad. And there are just alternatives that not only are they better, but they also don't feel bad to do. And I see all the memes about people complaining, oh, I hate doing, coach gave me Bulgarian split squats, blah, blah, blah. If you don't like doing it, just do something that you do like doing and works better. Anyway, so we're going to start off with which muscles the Bulgarian split squat works and why it's not really ideal for those. So the first one, the most obvious that a lot of people use it for, is the quads. The problem with training your quads with the Bulgarian split squat is that there's really no stretch there. And, as we all hopefully know by now, the stretch under load is one of the most important parts of training to develop a muscle. And it just doesn't do that very well. So the next part, obviously, you've got to lift weights to develop muscles effectively. And the stimulus to fatigue ratio, in terms of how much weight you're lifting for how fatiguing the exercise is really nowhere near as good as just regular squats or leg press or really any other relatively heavy compound that usually also has a decent stretch. So you're missing out on the stretch and the weight you're lifting is not that good. Now, there's other factors in building muscle as well. The pump matters, the burn matters, and Bulgarian split squats can give you a decent pump and a decent burn, but the thing is, leg extensions do as well, and they're way easier. And sometimes you can even do more weight as well and get a better stretch just on leg extensions compared to a Bulgarian split squat. So I'm not advocating for you to only do leg extensions, of course. I think squats and leg press are really useful. But my point here is that in every possible factor regarding the quads, the Bulgarian split squat there's way better options. The next one would be the glutes. And interestingly for the glutes, they fare a bit better. Bulgarian split squats are an okay glute exercise. Because the stretch they get is pretty decent. It's hard to stretch the glutes much more than what a Bulgarian split squat does. So that's pretty good. But I do think deep squats and deep deficit deadlifts and sumo deficit deadlifts and even sumo squats all stretch it a little bit more. And in terms of the weight, again, pretty much all of those exercises are going to allow the glutes to lift way more weight than what a Bulgarian split squat allows you to do. So it's not really the best for that use. Now for the pump and the burn, it can be as good as some of those others. This is going to depend on you. For myself, personally, the stimulus to fatigue ratio, trying to get a pump or burn on Bulgarian split squats for the glutes is worse than every other glute exercise. Maybe that's not the case for you, but we're giving it like 1 point here if we say it's as good as the others. It's still not looking great. Now for other muscles, you've got the adductors and abductors. That's the inner and outer thigh, or part of your glutes as well. I'd say it's kind of the same as the above. The stretch is not as good, the weight is not as good, the pump and burn is not as good as any exercises that are designed to hit the adductors and abductors. Really what the Bulgarian split squat is doing is, it's a jack of all trades. It's trying to hit everything and it's not really hitting anything ideally. Now, some muscles you might not be thinking about is the grip. Most people do Bulgarian split squats holding dumbbells, which is, could produce the problem that your grip is going to be the limiting factor rather than any of the muscles you actually want to train, which is really not ideal. You can solve this by using straps, which is a bit annoying. You got to put the straps on. Like, it's doable, but again, why are you not just using a better exercise? And then the last one, which again you might not have considered, is the lower back. First of all, if you're doing body weight Bulgarian split squats, unless you're like a beginner, you're not very strong at all, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to be remotely heavy enough to make you stronger or build any muscle or improve your power production. They're going to be really mediocre. So you're going to have to lift some weights. And if you do lift some weights, it's going to tax your lower back, which, that's not a problem. All the other exercises I've described, almost all of them, also tax your lower back. But the problem here is the stimulus to fatigue ratio, because you're holding weights in your hands, your lower back is active the entire time, but you're only doing one leg at a time. So that means for every one rep of stimulus that your leg gets, or each of your legs, your lower back has to do 2 reps worth of work, because you've got to do the left leg and then the right leg, or whatever order you want. So the stimulus to fatigue ratio is just inherently twice as bad for the lower back as it would be for like almost any other leg exercise. All right, now into the fitness qualities. Obviously there's way more than 5 fitness qualities, but I think these are the most relevant to why anyone would be using the Bulgarian split squat. The first one's strength, and it's a decent strength exercise, but there's a reason why you're only ever going to see this as an accessory in strength programs. It's just not as good as squats, deadlifts, or leg press. And maybe you've already done some of those, but this would never be your go-to for strength training. There's always going to be better alternatives. The next one, especially if you're an athlete, you're probably even more concerned with power than you are with strength. Although of course power is strength and speed, so forgetting about strength in your power training is, you're really putting the cart before the horse there. But in terms of power, the main problem with the Bulgarian split squat is that it is too unstable to output ideal force production for power training. Power training is all about force production as quickly as possible, and the more unstable you are, the less force you can output and the less quickly you can do it. So the Bulgarian split squat really is not ideal for driving power production. Something, especially the Olympic lifts, like the clean and jerk, the snatch and derivatives of those are going to be way better in just every way. Or even just a more standard lift that's more stable, like a squat or a deadlift, just done really quickly, like a speed squat, or even a jump squat. I know they can be a bit risky sometimes, but they're still better than just a Bulgarian split squat. I mean, how fast have you even seen someone move in a Bulgarian split squat? Probably not that fast. I've seen people do them with little jumping reps, but that's just exclusively worse than just jumping normally. If you want to jump higher, just jump. There's lots of facets to jump training, but Bulgarian split squat jump things is at best like a tiny part of that. It is not going to be the main part of your training. Then we've got stability. So I just complained about how unstable they are. This is where they kind of win, they win some points here. Bulgarian split squats are a bit unstable, and so they're good for training your stability. If that's a problem you have, maybe you're at risk of injury or you've already had an injury and you need to improve your stability, especially in your legs and in your hips and that sort of thing, maybe around your core a little bit, the core, whatever. Bulgarian split squats are actually a pretty decent option. All of the other complaints I have about them is for every other possible use, strength, power, muscle building, whatever. So if your goal is just to improve stability, Bulgarian split squats may actually be one of the first things you go to, because they're not stupidly unstable, like stuff you could do on a Bosu ball where it's just completely irrelevant to anything, and you can actually put some weight on them. So for stability training, that's where you're going to want to use the Bulgarian split squat. It's actually really good there. Onto some other uses. Maybe you're doing them for cardio as part of a circuit or something. I'm going to be real. The stimulus to fatigue ratio on Bulgarian split squats for cardio is just garbage. I would not recommend doing that at all. If you're trying to do more cardio, my first recommendation, whatever your sport is, just do that. It's probably already cardio. My friend I was discussing split squats with plays volleyball. Volleyball, already good cardio. If you've played volleyball, your heart rate goes up, you breathe a lot. Yeah, you stand around a bit, but that just means if you play more volleyball, it's going to be more specific to volleyball anyway. And if you don't need specificity in your cardio, you just go with the lowest stimulus to fatigue ratio, which is going to be like a light jog or using a seated cardio bike or one of these, it's never going to be Bulgarian split squats. So just forget about it for that. The last relevant one is going to be flexibility and mobility, which is kind of tied in a little bit to stability. The main problem here is that the stretch under load, especially on the quads, is just inferior to basically every other exercise I described. So it's pretty mediocre for this. It's not the worst thing in the world, compared to like a half rep leg press, it's going to be better. But like, why would you be doing a half rep leg press? You should be going all the way down. And a full range leg press probably is better than the Bulgarian split squat for mobility, even though it's a machine, it's not a compound. It's still probably a bit better. Okay, so, I'm not just here to complain. I've got some solutions for you, some better alternatives than the Bulgarian split squat. First up, for building your quads, obviously squats. The first thing anyone's going to say is squats. They are strictly better than Bulgarian split squats. And I know some people say like, oh, I'm not built to squat, whatever. If you're not built to squat, you're definitely not built to Bulgarian split squat. Okay, so don't even bother with that. And the idea that you're not built to squat, like, look, put something under your heels, get a bit of forward knee travel, maybe try loading it a different way. You could do a Zercher squat or whatever. There's lots of things you can do. You can squat, and it's gonna work better than a Bulgarian split squat. After that, you've got the leg press, maybe even better than squats. It's just that it's not a free weight movement. But for bodybuilding purposes, leg press might be even better than normal squats. After that, you got leg extensions. Yeah, they're not as heavy, but the stimulus to fatigue ratio compared to Bulgarian split squats, way better. You can absolutely smash a few sets of leg extensions going as hard as possible, maybe even to failure. And you'll be tired, your quads will be blasted, as they should be, but you're not going to be like dead. But people complain about after they do Bulgarian split squats, they can barely move. It's at the end of the program, and thank God, because you can't do anything else afterwards. That's not really a good sign for stimulus to fatigue ratio. After that, if you want some single leg stuff, single leg press is going to be better in every capacity than Bulgarian split squats, except maybe stability. And then you've just got like normal lunges. They're basically the same, but with a better stimulus to fatigue ratio. And the stretch on the quads, basically the same. Stretch on the glutes, basically the same. They're just more stable. And you can, you might have to lift a little bit heavier. That's not really ideal, but, they've got all those other things in their favor. I'd do these over Bulgarian split squats any day. Then for the glutes, like I said, they are a decent glute exercise, but like hip thrusts, especially in a hip thrust machine, if you can get a decent stretch, are going to be better in every capacity. Deficit sumo deadlifts and sumo squats, both going to be way better for the glutes. They hit it more completely, if you will. They perform more functions of the glute than the Bulgarian split squat does, and they stretch it better, and they load it heavier. And then front foot elevated lunges is sort of like, a more recent development in glute training, if you will. Like, I didn't start seeing them very often until recently. This is just strictly better than any kind of lunge or single leg thing or Bulgarian split squat for the glutes. Is just a lunge where your front foot is up on a platform. Works way better. For the abductors and adductors, the inner and outer thigh type of area, any kind of isolation exercise is strictly going to be better than Bulgarian split squats in every capacity. And you don't even need to do those because, frankly, a really deep ass to grass squat or leg press is going to train those anyway, and you should be doing those. So Bulgarian split squats, not the worst, but there's better alternatives. And then for fitness qualities, better alternatives for strength development, literally any heavy compound. Squats, deadlifts, leg press, doesn't even have to be free weights, sumo deadlifts, basically anything that is heavy and is a compound exercise is better for strength than Bulgarian split squats. For power, any kind of fast and heavy movement, not as heavy as a strength exercise, obviously, heavy enough that you can do it fast, but it's hard. So especially the Olympic lifts and their derivatives, but, put a speed deadlift. If you've seen West Side barbell, I'm not the biggest fan of West Side style training, but you strap some bands on a deadlift and you do some speed reps, that's going to be a hell of a lot better for power production than any amount of Bulgarian split squats you could ever do. Then we've got for, flexibility and mobility. Again, basically any compound movement with a full range of motion and a deep stretch. So, maybe Bulgarian split squats will improve your mobility a bit more than like a normal deadlift, but they're definitely not going to improve your mobility more than a stiff leg deficit deadlift or, just an ass to grass squat. Both of those are going to be way better for improving your mobility. And there are, more intense mobility exercises after that, like an overhead squat, even better. But even just a regular squat ass to grass is probably better for your mobility than a Bulgarian split squat. So, really, really any decent range of motion compound lift with a full stretch is going to be better. My point is, if you're doing these, they're just better stuff you could be doing. I think people only recommend Bulgarian split squats because they heard someone else say it, they saw some athlete they like doing them. If you just want to copy your favorite athlete's workout and they got some Bulgarian split squats in there, that's cool, but that's not like effective training. That's, just something you're doing for fun, which is fine, if you're just trying to be a little fit or whatever. But to that, I would say, like, why don't you just achieve all of that more efficiently? If you're just working out for fun, instead of doing that like 4 times a week for mediocre results, how about you do it 2 times a week for mediocre results by just using more effective exercises? Or if you don't want mediocre results, you want good results, just do the same amount of training, but make it better training. We're talking about efficiency here, and Bulgarian split squats is never ever going to be your most efficient option for anything.